Hello everybody, my name is Jackie and welcome to Prairie Sports Talk, the podcast where we talk about sports that directly impact the Canadian Prairie. Today is August 15th, 2024, and oh boy do we have a lot to talk about today. So we are going to open up the episode talking about just a few smaller sports stories from around Canada. We will open up talking about the Western Canadian Baseball League's finals, which will be starting tonight. And then we were talking about the Canadian Elite Basketball League Championship, which just passed and was a tremendous game. We will also talk about hockey, because this is Canada. We always have hockey. Always, even in the middle of August. Then we will move on to my recap of last week in the CFL. And last week was really chaotic. And when I say chaotic, I mean there was a game where both teams thought they had won at different points in overtime, and neither team ended up leaving this game happy. Then we will talk about some very interesting CFL stories. So we're going to first talk about a couple returning players this week that will be very important to their teams, but after that, we will talk about a story I am very excited about. We will be talking about a superstar returning to the CFL, and I am excited to talk about this. If you follow the league at all, you already know who I'm talking about. Then, we will talk about a very messy situation in Edmonton with their team name, because, of course, the name is causing more issues. Why not? We will then wrap up the episode with my predictions for this upcoming week in the CFL. I am very excited for this episode. Let's just get into it. The yearly hurricane that is the WCBL season is about to wrap up, and we have a very interesting matchup for the championship. We have representing the Western Conference, Okotoks. We have representing the Eastern Conference, Moose Jaw. Both of these teams have worked so hard all season long to get here. And tonight, Game 1 goes in Okotoks. Then, on the 16th, tomorrow night, Game 2 will go in Moose Jaw. And if needed, Game 3 will wrap up the season in Okotoks on the 17th. Baseball has been insane this year for the WCBL. And for a lot of Canadians, myself included, this league has been a very much needed break from the Blue Jays. Even though my 57s didn't necessarily have the best season ever, it did not change the fact it was a very fun season on the whole. And that is very needed when the Jays are playing like they have this season. So, to Okotoks, to Moose Jaw, I wish you both good luck. Can't wait to see how the series plays out. This past weekend, while many around the world were focused on the last few days of the Olympics, I was more concerned about the Canadian Elite Basketball League Championship. It was a hard-fought season all across the country, and it came down to the Vancouver Bandits and the Niagara River Lions. It was a hard-fought match. Both teams had chances where it looked like they were about to pull away from the other. Niagara would outplay BC for a few possessions and start to kind of pull away. But then Vancouver would pull them back, keeping it very close. Vancouver also had a few moments where they looked like they may start to run away with it. But without much issue, Niagara would also be able to catch up to them. This game went back and forth all game long. And finally, it came down to the final shot. 95-95. Whoever gets to 96 first wins the game. Vancouver just tied it on a clutch 3-point shot. And now, Niagara with the chance to win it. They slowly and calmly come down across half court, approaching the 3-point line. A quick stutter step, and Khalil Ahmed drives to the net and lays it home for an easy championship winning layup. massive congratulations to the River Lions, massive congratulations to the whole league, because they have been able to create not just a fun league to watch as a somewhat alternative to the NBA, but they have been able to create a sustainable and fun league to watch. I love the CEBL and I can't wait for next season already. I hope I'll be able to cover it more next year because I just did not have the time to cover it as much as I would have liked to this season. I know I didn't mention it in the intro, but I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the absolutely insane hitting streak Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had. He had a 22-game hitting streak. That is absurd. In 81 at-bats, he had 40 hits, 10 home runs with 22 extra base hits, 22 RBIs, and a .494 batting average. That is absurd. This man is the future of the Blue Jays if they want to have one. I doubt anyone from the Blue Jays organization is watching this video, but if you are, I don't care what it costs. I don't care how much he asks for. Pay the man. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the Blue Jays right now. Give him whatever he wants. If he wants a new house, fine, give it to him. If he wants to be one of the highest paid players in the league, fine, pay him. Do whatever it takes to keep this man in Toronto long term. I don't care what it takes. Do it. Get it done. Week 10 in the CFL might have been one of the craziest weeks of football I have ever watched. It opened up with an absolutely chaotic game between the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Ottawa Redblacks. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, that is Jackie Knobs, by the way, JACKYKNOBS, Jackie Knobs. Now, if you follow me there, though, you probably saw me bashing the game through the first half of it, being like, oh my god, I can't believe I picked this as my game of the week. Yeah, I regret doing that because this ended up being an insanely interesting game, especially down the stretch. It was very low scoring for the first few quarters, but as soon as we got into the fourth quarter, things suddenly turned on. Now, there weren't a whole lot of points in the fourth quarter, but at the same time, there was a lot of really interesting plays back and forth, including both teams getting late points to change the outcome of the game. Saskatchewan went ahead by 3 with a touchdown, only for Ottawa to drive the field and tie it up with a field goal. Then we go to overtime, where I've already talked about this in an update. Now you can check that update out in the description down below. But effectively, overtime was owned by the command center, plain and simple. The outcome of this game wasn't determined by how good or bad the Riders played. It wasn't determined by how good or bad the Red Blacks played. It wasn't even determined by the referees. It was determined by the command center making 2 crucial calls, one of which I understand personally, because they had to make a decision on a play that Corey Mace challenged in overtime, and they ruled that it was pass interference. It was a bang-bang play. I understand if someone thinks it shouldn't have been called, but at the same time, even though I played defensive back my entire time in high school football and for several years in minor football, I still think if the DB gets there before the ball, it is pass interference, plain and simple. Even if it's just a fraction of a second. If it's enough that the receiver is impeded from catching the ball, that is PI. But, so, Corey Mace challenges it, and it was 3rd down. If the command center had ruled that there was no PI, the game was over, Ottawa would have won. But they ruled it was. Saskatchewan is able to get a touchdown on the drive and extend overtime. And then Saskatchewan gets a huge sack in the second overtime period after only getting a field goal on their possession. And they get another one on 2nd down. and this one results in a fumble. Saskatchewan jumps on the ball, game over, teams come on, shake hands with everyone, done and done. Dustin Crum, who was playing quarterback for the Red Blacks, goes into the locker room. Except no, the game's not done because the command center says there was roughing the passer. A Saskatchewan Rough Rider was blocked and he fell into the legs of Dustin Crum, which resulted in said sack. I want to know what the command center expected the Rough Rider to do here, because he is not in control of how he is falling. So did they want him to just break the laws of physics and stop moving? Or are they now giving offensive lines a way to force the defense to take a penalty if they block them into the legs of the quarterback? Is that now automatically just roughing the passer, and can offenses theoretically do that over and over again to drive the field? Because that's what this seems to be implying. I don't think that's a great precedent to set. Call me crazy, but I don't think it's a good idea. The command center needs to figure out what roughing the passer is, and they need to explain it better. And the league needs to figure out what the job of the command center is. Is it to change outcomes of the game of a game based on very close calls, like they did in 2 different occasions here, or is it to correct egregious mistakes, like missed offsides that result in a touchdown? Because those are 2 very different things, and right now the command center is doing both. The league needs to decide what it wants the command center to do, and then maybe the command center will actually make sense for once. And that was just the first game of the week. We still have 3 more to go. So we move on to the second half of a home-and-home series between Toronto and Calgary. And this game was basically the exact opposite of what we saw the previous week. Calgary dominates Toronto for the majority of the game. Jake Mayo plays out of his mind for the first half. And then it just kind of stops. I don't know if it was a defensive adjustment from Toronto, or if the young Calgary quarterback Jake Mayo just got complacent, or what happened in this game. But Toronto came storming back and ended up winning this game quite handily, 39-25. Calgary was in control of this game for a good chunk of it, but they just couldn't finish it off. Mayo still ended up putting up a somewhat respectable game. He went 33 for 45 for 373 yards, but he had 2 costly turnovers in the fourth quarter, including a game-changing pick 6 that basically killed the Stampeders' chances at winning this game. Mayo has a bright future in this league if he can figure out how to handle himself in these clutch situations. He's a very skilled player, but when it comes down to do-or-die situations, he typically doesn't rise to the occasion. He's still young, there's plenty of time for him to learn how to do so, but he needs to learn it. He can't just kind of hope that Calgary can repeatedly just blow their opponents out. Because sooner or later, well, something like this is always going to happen. Something like this is going to happen time and time again, sooner or later. And then we move on to a game that was a lot closer than I thought it would be, but a game that still had the expected result. Montreal defeating Hamilton 33-23. But the big story of this game wasn't Montreal winning their 8th game. It was Bo Levi Mitchell has been pulled and will likely not be starting in the upcoming week for the Ticats. Bo Levi started the game 3 for 4 for 25 yards, but threw an interception, and that was it. That was in his entire game. He didn't play another snap. I have been saying it all season long. Bo Levi should have retired seasons ago. He should have retired after 2021. Bo Levi is an all-time great. He is one of the best quarterbacks to play in the CFL. But at the end of the day, Father Time is undefeated. Age catches up to everyone. And last season, it started to catch up to Bo. This season, Well, Father Time just sacked Bo Levi Mitchell. But a major story for the Ticats, giving them a lot of hope, was Taylor Powell playing tremendous. 30 for 38 for 319 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He kept the Ticats in this game, in which Montreal should have blown Hamilton out of the water. Montreal is a lot better of a team than Hamilton is. So the fact Powell was able to keep the Ticats in this game, I think that is a very good sign for Hamilton as the season progresses. And then we move on to what I thought was a very bold prediction last week. Edmonton would beat BC. I was right. But it didn't feel as bold as I thought it would. Because this game wasn't just a win, this game wasn't close. I thought if Edmonton would win this, they would just barely squeak out a win. They'd win by 1, 2, maybe 3 points. But no, Edmonton ended up winning this game 33-16. But a very, very concerning sign in Edmonton, Trey Ford went down. Ford went down early in the game. When he went down, he was 6 for 6 for 96 yards. He was off to a good start, but he seemed to get hit very awkwardly by a pair of BC defenders, and I can't quite tell if it was a upper body injury around the gut or if that's just where he was holding his arm. But regardless, I hope Trey Ford is okay. He has finally gotten a shot in the CFL, a proper shot. So if he has it taken away because of an injury, that would suck. That would really suck. Now, credit where it's due. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he came in, he played solid. He didn't necessarily have an insane game, but he played solid. He played better than we've seen him play most of the season. He went 14 for 18 for 171, threw a touchdown and an interception. Javon Leake, though, their running back for Edmonton, he had a pretty good game to say the least. 21 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Nothing to scoff at. Meanwhile, for BC, Big Play Jake, he didn't look like Big Play Jake. Jake Dolegala struggled. I figured he would this week because he wasn't really supposed to get much action this season. He was supposed to back up VA all season long and kind of just learn from him. But after VA went down a couple weeks ago, Dolegala kind of just got thrown into the fire and was like, okay, now survive. He struggled. He went 14 for 23, 146, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Not a bad game, but I have to say I expected more. I did. Dolegala had a sharp season backing up in Saskatchewan last season. Considering he started the year as a third string, he still put together a very solid season. But it would appear his time in BC has ended. So, without further ado, let's get into the CFL news. Let's start off with some injury news. So, it sounds like the Saskatchewan Roughriders will be getting 2 key pieces back. It sounds like Trevor Harris and AJ Ouellette will both be returning this week in time to face the number 1 seeded Montreal Alouettes. This is great news for the Riders as they started off really hard with both of these players playing healthy, but as soon as Harris went down, the Rough Riders started to struggle. The Rough Riders have won 1 of their last 5 games since Harris went down. Not a great ratio. They have gone 1-3-1. Somehow they are still near the top of the league, and they are technically in first in the West, because BC and Saskatchewan are fighting for first in the West, but it seems to be too Canadian because they keep seeming to want to let the other be first. Like, no, after you. No, I insist, after you. And it's just kind of been back and forth between those two teams doing that over and over again, which has allowed both Calgary and Winnipeg to make up ground in the standings. Even Edmonton now is starting to threaten, as they are just 3 games back of BC and Saskatchewan, despite the fact that they are second last in the league. But that's not the biggest injury news, because it sounds like Cody Fajardo could also be returning for the Montreal Alouettes. Now, I say could be, because there is no guarantee he will be starting this week. As of recording, Jason Moss has not ruled him out for this upcoming game. I'm not 100% sure if he will play. I hope he does, because this would be his first game back in Saskatchewan since Paulton raised with the team a few seasons back. But it would be a very fun matchup to watch Harris and Fajardo both go against their former teams for the first time since they swapped places. And then we move on to the big story. The big boy story. Nathan Rourke is back. The BC Lions have signed the 2022 MOP Nathan Rourke. After having a tremendous season in 2022, Rourke went down to the NFL to try his hand down south. He bounced around the league. He started out in Jacksonville. After most of the season, got traded over to New England. Didn't really get a shot there. And then this offseason, he signed with the New York Giants. Didn't even make it to preseason. Got cut. So he signs with the Falcons. Has a bit of a rough game there. And gets cut. But despite the fact that he never really had any success in the NFL, Rourke has quite the legacy up north, because he basically came in as this kid who there was a lot of hype around, but there was no real reason to think he was going to set the league on fire. And then he proceeded to not only set the league on fire, he proceeded to torch it. He changed the entire league in one season. And now he is back for BC at a point where their quarterback situation was anything but stable, because VA could be out long term. Dolegala just struggled in their game. So what do? Well, you bring in a superstar, apparently. You bring in Rourke. And now that Rourke has come in, my question is, what happens to VA? We know what happened to Dolegala because he ended up being cut. He was cut, as well as Brennan Armstrong, the other 2 quarterbacks on the Lions roster. So, VA, in the middle of a career best season, a season where he is currently one of the front runners to win MOP, he could be out of a job when he comes back from his injury. That is a very bizarre statement to say. But even more bizarre, the MOP frontrunner isn't even the best quarterback on that team now. I'd say Rourke is better. They are both very similar players, but the thing is, Rourke is more refined in how he throws the ball, and he's faster. He's basically just Vernon Adams, but better. And that's not anything against VA. VA is one of my favorite players in the league. It's been amazing to see him finally get the respect he deserves this season. And it is heartbreaking to see that he could be losing the starting job that he has worked so hard for. But I also think, I know BC is saying they're not going to trade VA, but I think they still might. I think there are 2 teams that should make a trade for VA. I think Hamilton should make a trade because I think they have just realized that Bo Levi Mitchell might not be the solution they thought he would be the last couple seasons. Or I think Toronto should make a trade, because you got that whole Chad Kelly mess over there. There's no guarantee he will be back at any point soon, even though the league is currently reviewing his suspension. There's no guarantee he will be back. And if he does come back, there's going to be a lot of controversy around it. So say screw it, we're going to make a trade for VA, and we're just going to kind of ignore this Chad Kelly situation, and VA is our man going forward. I think both those teams should try to make a trade for him. But the issue is, I don't think either team will. Both teams they seem so set in their ways this season that I can't see them making changes no matter how much it would better the team. But regardless, the big story is Nathan Roque is back. Finally. Nathan, welcome home to Canada. We missed you, man. And then we move on to a messy story. So, a few seasons back, the Edmonton football team changed their names. Now, I don't want to say the name because it is offensive to Inuit people. But they have had a lot of pushback from it. Lots of people saying they betrayed their legacy. I don't think they did, as they did keep the EE that they used. They kept the same colors, it's the same organization, etc., etc. They still acknowledge their past and everything. But they changed to the Edmonton Elks, and though it's technically grammatically incorrect, I like the name. There's a decent amount of elk that live in Alberta, so it makes sense. They got some really nice logos. My favorite is the two antlers that look like a football. That is a gorgeous logo. They still use the double E logo that they've used basically throughout their entire franchise's history. But now their owner is changing. Well, probably changing. It hasn't been technically confirmed at time of recording. But Larry Thompson is expected to be introduced as the new owner of the Edmonton Elks on Thursday, which is the day this episode goes live, but is the day after I record, so that's a bit of an issue for me. But it sounds like he wants to change the name back to the previous name. I don't want to say it. But it kind of leaves the Edmonton Football Club in a weird area because they have annoyed the people who think it was a bad idea to change to the Elks because they changed in the first place. But now if they go back to their old name, they will annoy the people who supported the name change because they've just kind of turned their back on it. It's a lose-lose scenario if they go back. I think best case scenario, they just kind of leave the situation alone, don't mention it for a couple years, and hope it just eventually dies down. I don't know what else you can really do in this situation that wouldn't upset a lot of people. Week 11 in the CFL. We are officially past the halfway point of the regular season, and this has been a roller coaster of a season for pretty much everyone. There's been twists and turns, there's been loop-de-loops. Some teams have pulled a full 180, both negatively and positively for some teams. This has been a crazy season so far, and just based on the chaos of the last couple of days, something tells me this season's only going to get crazier and crazier, and frankly, I'm here for it. I'm excited for this. This is going to be a fun last 10 or so weeks of the CFL season. I'm so excited. But without further ado, let's get into my predictions. So we open up with a very interesting matchup. The Red Blacks traveling to Calgary to take on the Stampeders. I think Ottawa's going to win this game, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be that big of a win. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. And I think this is going to come down to one player. One single player. Jeremiah Masoli. Masoli is starting his first game this season. And assuming he's able to make it past 4 plays, which I hope he does, Masoli is a absolutely beloved player across the league. This will be the longest he has played since Garrett Marino injured him a few years back on a dirty play. So, will this be the week? Will this be the week we see the triumphant return of Jeremiah Masoli, hopping in the saddle for one last ride to tame the Stampeders? Or will this be a painful game where the Stampeders just trample him? I think this is going to be one last ride for Masoli. I don't know if this will be his only game this season. But I feel like Masoli is at the point in his career where he's going to make the most of every single moment he gets on that field. Because he doesn't know how long he has left. Nobody does. And I don't think it's very long, unfortunately. I think Masoli is going to go out there and he's going to show us exactly why he became such a well-respected football player. And then he's going to come off the field after the game and show the class and humility that made him so beloved across the league. And then we move on to what I think might not just be the game of the week. I think this has the potential to be the game of the season. This is undoubtedly my game of the week. But if Cody Fajardo plays, this could easily be game of the year. Because this would be the first time Cody Fajardo has played in Saskatchewan since effectively being run out of the province by less than happy fans a couple seasons back. And this would also be the first time Trevor Harris has played the Alouettes since the team cut him in order to sign Fajardo. These two teams effectively swapped quarterbacks a few seasons back. And, well, Montreal has a Grey Cup and Saskatchewan has seen Harris go down a few times. I think you guys know who I think has won the swap so far. But regardless, I think Saskatchewan's going to be able to hold their own in this game. I think this is going to be a very back and forth game regardless of which quarterback Montreal has playing. But I think the result of the game will come down to which quarterback is playing. If Cody's playing, Montreal wins it in a tight game. If he's not, the result is swapped and Saskatchewan wins it in a tight game. But with that said, I want to make a definitive prediction because I don't want to cop out on this. I think Montreal wins in a nail-biter. I am very, very excited for this game though because I'm going to be at the game this week and I'm ecstatic. This is going to be a very fun game. I'm struggling to put into words how much I enjoy going to football games. This is a yearly tradition for my family. We try to make it to at least one Rider game every year. And we have ever since, I believe, 2006, with the exception of 2020, because there was no season. But I'm very excited for this game. It's going to be a fun game. If you only watch one game this week, make it this one, because there's going to be a lot of emotions from both sides in this game. And then we move on to what could be a blowout. We have the Edmonton Elks traveling to Hamilton to take on the Ticats. Elks win, plain and simple. I don't care if Ford plays, I don't care if Bethel Thompson plays. Edmonton is riding high right now with a decent amount of momentum. And the Ticats, they have not found their footing all season long. Yes, the Ticats won the only other meeting between these two teams. But I think Edmonton just kind of shows up, embarrasses Hamilton, walks out. Done and dusted. And then we move on to what may be the most highly anticipated game this week. Winnipeg traveling to BC. The return of Nathan Rourke. He will begin his first start since 2022. And I'm excited for this game. I really am. I think Rourke he might be a little nervous to start off the game, but I feel like as the game progresses and he gets more and more reps back at game speed in the CFL, we're going to see what made him the MOP a few years back, and Rourke's going to have a really good game. I think BC wins this game despite a slow start, but regardless, I'm just happy Rourke is back in the CFL. But that is everything I have for you guys this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you're on Spotify, be sure to follow the 13th Man Podcast Network. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you guys have a great night. I hope you guys have a great whatever. Stay safe, stay strong. You got this. And this is Jackie for Prairie Sports Talk signing off.